We are recording. As long as you stay right there and you don't back up, you'll be fine. And once I sit down, we go.
Coming to you live from Georgia, it's the Matt L. Podcast. Our next guest is Shane Higgins, the Associate Pastor of Roswell Assembly. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, my actual title is production director.
Yes, I was going to say you wear many hats at our church.
Yeah,
Are you ready for some questions?
absolutely.
Okay, so how long have you been serving as a pastor to date?
As a pastor, I've been serving since 2012.
Okay,
And so that would be 12 years.
cool. What was your seminary or Bible school experience like?
So I went to something that's a little different. I didn't really go to a Bible school. I went to what they called, back in the day, Master's Commission.
Yeah.
And then it kind of morphed from Master's Commission to like a associate degree college, from an associate degree college to a full-on college. So the funny thing is, I came in about the middle of the road where it was transitioning from a Master's Commission to an associate's degree. And so we were there with the associate. We were going to get an associate degree. Like, we knew that that's what we were signing up for. And then 2 years into it, it transitioned to a full college. And we were able to get our bachelor's. My bachelor is in ministerial leadership. And so that's where all that kind of took place. And so it was there in Griffin. We did a lot of hands-on, everything. Like, the whole touting of the school was everything was going to be hands-on.
Okay,
and
good.
That's why I went there, because I didn't want to go to a college where I sat and I studied and then left with no experience. I wanted to go get experience and be in the middle of all of it, and go into what's Valor School of Leadership, I think is the name of it now. And so going there allowed us to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool, Shane. Like at my second church, the Second Assemblies of God church that I attended, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they promoted Master's Commission a lot.
Yeah.
And they had like young people doing like music videos, and they released an album.
Yeah.
And I'm in seminary at Metro Atlanta Seminary, and they really stress like the head, the heart, and the hands of ministry.
Yeah.
And not just like head knowledge, even though there's a lot of that.
Absolutely. We actually kind of implemented this here with our youth, but our motto there was passion for God, teachability, and work ethic. And then kind of here lately, they've thrown in an extra one called flexibility.
Yeah, that's a good to have in ministry, right?
Yeah,
and in life.
You end up having to have flexibility on top of all that.
I think like some people go into ministry, and we know how hard our pastor works, how hard Pastor Tim works. Like, I've seen him, like, he used to, like, before our building was renovated, like, clean the bathrooms, bleach the floors.
Yeah.
But some people, I think he said in one of his messages, are like, oh, I don't really want to do that, but you have to be all hands on deck,
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I was plunging a toilet, and 3 weeks ago, I was plumber trying to fix a urinal. And so
and we appreciate that.
We do all those things around here.
Yeah. The things members of our congregation don't see, we appreciate that. So what have the other churches been where you served?
So I started off first with the college being there in Griffin. It was attached to Griffin First Assembly. And so they had 17 plus pastors, so you could take your pick of what you wanted to do. I joked around that I actually just got too close to the sound booth and saw flashy lights, and it attracted me. And so I actually started off there working in production, doing back in the day where there was this thing called tape, where you had to put the tape in the VCR. And so I would edit the broadcast and then put all the tapes in and get them all the broadcasts sent to tape and ship all the tapes out to the TV studios. And then the cool thing is we went to DVD a little bit later. And so it was really easy at that point. Just click burn and you're ready to go.
So you, the churches where you served, they kind of transitioned as technology evolved.
Right. And so I started off there just kind of doing basic stuff, and then grew into taking over the production area. While the pastor actually felt the call to go to the missions field. And so we kind of handled everything while he was doing that. And then we transitioned from there to Columbus, where we took on at a much smaller scale, but same concept, same excellence, spirit. And
Good.
the funny thing is, the pastor that I was working up under, it was his son that was leaving Columbus, and so I just transitioned right into his son's role.
Funny how that works sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite church at which you have served, or have you enjoyed serving at all of them?
So each one of them, I believe God put in my life for specific reasons. I believe, in Griffin, it was the training ground. It was where you would learn everything. You learned how to be a leader. You learned how to do what you do. And it was always learning something. And then I went to Columbus, and that was all growing. And so as I was there, I grew in the skills that I had. I grew in the leadership I had. I grew in kind of each aspect of ministry there. And we, grew into doing small group. And so I kind of started a small transition out of production. This is still my primary thing that I do. And then coming here, it's been kind of a refining part where I'm able to, because there's just a couple of us here, you do a lot, so you're learning a lot more, and you're learning how to operate in a different capacity. Because both of the former churches, Columbus was 1,200, Griffin 6,000 plus, and so coming to a smaller church and doing a lot more of the other stuff is kind of been really refining me and refining my leadership, refining who I am and how I operate.
I heard that when you and your wife Lana came here to our church, Roswell Assembly, you were like, where are all the people?
Yeah.
Coming from big churches. But, also the positive of that is you really get to know people and just form deep relationships and friendships with them.
Yeah. And that's the thing about, the good thing is I never changed how I led, even coming here. The same way that I operated there was in a community, relationally, and in Griffin. Then I moved to Columbus, and we operated relationally in there. And so it was a natural fit as soon as we came here. It was like, oh, this is where our personalities actually can take root and actually be effective.
Okay. Probably the most important question. How did you sense your calling or discern or know that you were called to serve in full-time ministry?
All right, Matt, you're going to laugh at me. This was a thing that happened. Our youth group, so I attended Griffin First Assembly. As soon as I could drive, that was the first place I went. I was supposed to go to a concert. I got pulled over on the way going to the concert.
By the police, or?
By the police officer, and I was going too fast. This was only 3 days after I got my license.
Oh, boy.
And so I got pulled over, and my mom told me to come right back home.
Yeah.
So the first place I was going with my car by myself was to the church. And because what had been happening is my youth group there had been in a revival season. Like, we were having services that were going to 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we were seeing healings take place. We were seeing God move in a powerful way. And so that all was happening in my senior year of high school, and I was just super excited and really being changed and called at that moment. I didn't realize I was being called at those moments, but I was starting to be called. And so, as normal high school students do, we had booked a trip to Mexico.
Nice.
The goal was to go to Mexico and drink and party and do
all
all
these church people, or?
No, these were just high school buddies that I had.
From your public school?
No, I actually went private school.
Wow.
And so we all wanted to go party and have fun. It was our senior trip, or what we were considering our senior trip before life started.
Yeah.
And while I was down there, we were, of course, drinking and partying and doing all the crazy stuff. I felt one night that I just needed to slip away. All my friends were up at the little bar tiki hut thing by the hotel, and I went down by the beach and just kind of sat there and really asked God, what do you want me to even do with my life? Because at that point I've done explored veterinarian, because I worked at a vet and was a vet tech. I had explored going into the army. I had explored going into pharmaceuticals because my uncle owned a pharmacy, and so like I had all these options to be able to go and do things. And then on top of all that, I was already in like Harvard placement program, and so within our private school, the teachers can nominate somebody to go into this program, and it was part of Harvard, and so I had the opportunities with all that kind of stuff, and I was just really sitting there, God, I don't know what you want me to do. And I said, God, let me see a shooting star if you want me to go in ministry. And that night, sure enough, I saw a shooting star. And then my buddies had realized that I had slipped away, and they had come down, and I just told them what had happened. And they were sitting with me, and they sat there, and we just kept seeing shooting star after shooting star after shooting star. And that is really just a meteor shower that's taking place.
Okay.
And we woke up the next morning, and I was on the pull-out sofa in the hotel room, and they woke me up, and they had the news on, and it was like there was a meteor shower the night before. Well, we didn't know anything about that. We were there to party. We weren't watching the news or anything like that. And they were like, see, the Lord orchestrated that meteor shower a long time ago to happen at the very moment that I asked that question. And so from there, I knew that God was calling me to go into full-time ministry. And so I went into it was Master School of Ministry at that point, and I started. I'm like, I'm supposed to be a senior pastor. That's what I'm supposed to be. Okay. Then God's like, pipe it down.
Okay.
Pipe it down. You're fine.
I think He did that with me too.
And it's like that's not. Yes, that is one of the things. Though that is a office that I want you to fulfill, but not anywhere yet. And so when I started, that's when I kind of morphed over into production and everything.
Okay. Well, here's a very broad question. What do you think about our church, Roswell Assembly, and the culture of our church, the people in our congregation, strengths and areas for improvement, pros and cons?
Yeah, I really love Roswell Assembly, and I think God had called on and I here at the exact time that He called us, because it was right in the transition that the youth pastors were transitioning out, and then we were here the week that they left was kind of the week we first.
So you never got to meet Pastors Chris and Kira?
No,
but I interviewed them. I should send you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw.
This is great.
We saw them like. In passing.
Bye.
Yeah.
Like 2 ships passing in the night, or 4 ships passing in the night.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first week here, we saw them going into the sanctuary, and then it was like that week, hey, we're leaving. And I was like, oh, yeah. And so it was kind of a little transition in. And when we started, Pastor Dylan actually had just called me for a part-time side gig to just come in, do the posting of the sermons, to do the social media graphics and kind of scheduling of the volunteers. And that's all that he initially hired me for. And then as I started helping out, I just I love the place, and I felt God saying, you need to serve this man. And that's what I started doing. And I just started serving and serving and serving. So I moved from a part-time to more of a full-time, but all contractual, nothing really official. And then I did that for a year, and then Pastor John brought us on full time, and Lana transitioned into the youth ministry.
Yeah.
And so
both of you have been such blessings to our church.
Oh, thank you. So that's we have genuinely loved it. Now, for every place, there's a place for improvement, and I believe that God's brought us here to help shape culture, and God's brought us here for the time that He's planned for Roswell Assembly, and I believe that is revival. And I believe that God's wanting to do something, and He's placed us here to be able to help facilitate that. Now, I am a back-ends guy. That's what I do. I do systems. I do things like that. So as I've been here, our goal has just been, hey, if 300 people came to Roswell the next week, could we sustain
Well, I mean, we need a bigger parking lot, as we saw with the block party, right?
Exactly. And so it's like, can we sustain these things? And so one of the things that Pastor Dylan and I have been working through is like, okay, how do we sustain? How do we steward a revival? How do we pastor through a revival?
Yes.
And I believe God's placed us here because our strengths align with what God's wanting to do here.
Yeah. Like, I think of one strength of our congregation is a huge strength is our diversity, the
Mhm.
diversity of congregation.
Yeah.
One, I don't know whether people can improve it, but it's kind of like I see Roswell Assembly as like a sleeping giant. You know, I feel our congregation is a little sleepy, but we also have we have some older people in our congregation, but maybe like apathetic and complacent. But I don't want to put that all on everyone. You know, I don't want to imply that everyone is like that.
Just to give you a heads up, that's every church.
Yeah. Okay.
That is every church.
Okay.
Every church has that. That's the pastor's dilemma that they run into. People are busy people.
Yeah.
And so
it's trendy to be busy.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the pastor is fighting against this culture
yes.
that is busy, go, 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 go. And then we kind of slap church on the top of it. And so a lot of churches deal with that. And there have not been very many churches that are successful in breaking that paradox. And so that's something that with relationship and discipleship that could be broken. But the thing is, it takes a lot to break that ground. Pastor Tom's been here for 20 years, and he's been tilling that ground for 20 years and trying to break that. And I feel like just now we're starting to see that awakening giant, like you said.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that take place.
It's great to be here and to see, be part of that. So I follow Elevation Church.
Yeah.
So what was your role at Elevation?
I never worked with Elevation.
Rhythm or youth? Or?
So all I did was when they would do concerts here in Georgia, they would use Griffin First Assembly, and I'm very knowledgeable of the systems and stuff. And a lot of times the Georgia district was the one that was bringing them in. And so I would go in and do the system engineer for them.
Okay. Cool. Can I ask you about the second love of your life besides Jesus, Lana?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How did you and Lana meet each other, or where?
So we met, our first time was exposure weekend, which is kind of like a visiting day for the college there at Griffin. And so we met that day. I thought she was crazy, loud, obnoxious, ridiculous.
And what did she think of you?
Oh, she thought I was a nerd.
Because I have my next question was, is it true that you and she didn't like each other at first?
Absolutely. So we met each other. I was too much of a nerd for her, and she was too loud and crazy for me. And so the first year when we started going to the school, we butted heads so much. And I was like, look, you've got to chill it out.
Like, and did she say anything similar to you? Or
yeah, she said, you are not my father, shut up.
Oh, there you go.
And I was like, all right.
Okay.
But so the first year we butted heads a lot. The second year we started to kind of grow a relationship, became best friends. Our third year we were dating, and our fourth year we were engaged. And her dad had a rule: she had to graduate before we got married. Okay. So the funny thing is, we walked. So we got married, and then 2 weeks after, we walked at Southeastern.
Where Hannah's going now.
Where Hannah's going now, yeah.
Is that a large school?
Yeah, it's fairly large.
Okay.
It's there in Lakeland, Florida.
Okay. I think there are a lot of churches in Lakeland.
Yeah. It is a very big, because of the school there's a huge AG presence there.
I was going to ask you something else about Lana, but I forgot.
Oh.
Was it like a God thing? Like he did the work in your hearts?
Yeah, absolutely. For us to go from where we were at to being married, yeah, absolutely. Because at that moment, God was starting to form this relationship that we started off calling each other's junk out. And then it moved from calling each other's junk out to like, hey, I actually think I like you. And so I believe God started moving in our hearts way back when it first started. And it was, she is my rock. She is the one I talk to about everything. And that's kind of how...
And you are that for her too.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And so in that process of long conversations and hanging out is where we started forming that relationship. And so we had a relationship that was built on friendship before anything.
That's good, right?
And so that's one of the things we encourage the students here is like, hey, friendship will show you a lot of things about a person. Mm-hmm. And so as we grew in friendship, I saw all the qualities that she had and her love for people,
Yeah.
her big heart,
Yeah.
her yes, she has a big personality, but it's because there's a big heart, there's
Yeah.
big care, there's big everything behind that. And so getting to know all of that is where I started falling in love.
Gotcha. So what has it been like for you and Lana to pastor an online church? Like, what's the name of it? Isn't it called something like One Tribe?
Yeah, Only One Church is the name of it.
Only One Church.
Yep. And so pastoring that has been fraught with all kinds of things.
Sure.
So when we first started, a lot of people didn't believe in it. A lot of people were anti the online thing. And then, hey.
And when was this? Was this before 2020?
Yes, it was actually 2019.
Okay.
Is when we started talking
and
about it.
And then when COVID happened, they probably were like, oh, what's
right? Yeah,
jumps on it, you know?
So the fun thing that happened is we started talking about it in 2019. And then I went for my licensing interview and all that kind of stuff with the Assemblies of God. And I just got out of my mouth, hey, we want to pastor an online church. And, or they were like, what's one of your goals in life? And I was like, oh, we want to pastor an online church. And then 2 weeks later, everything shut down.
February or March 2020?
March 2020.
Yeah.
So we were doing our interview in February, and then March, everything shut down. And at that point, we had a gracious pastor. I mean, he's one of the best pastors, I think, in the state of Georgia.
So you put him up against Pastor Tim any day?
No, Pastor Tim is...
I mean, they're all unique, right?
Yes, Pastor Tim has been more... So Pastor Paul, of course, would lead no
Palmer?
Paul.
Okay.
Paul Thomas.
So not Pastor Paul Palmer?
No, that's Atlanta Dream
Center.
Center. Yeah. Pastor Paul, he is super smart, a business guy. He is phenomenal in strategy. Like, he is phenomenal in those kind of things. And Pastor Tim's phenomenal in relationships.
Yes.
Phenomenal
yes.
And so they fulfill two different roles in my life. So Pastor Paul, he is actually on the board of Only One Church. He is part of that in that capacity and help and lead and guide and advise in Only One Church. So he has that kind of mind. And so he looked at me and said, all right, let's see what you got. And I was like, oh, okay, fine.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And so we got to really walk through and talk through a lot of what online church looks like. And we were able to, he allowed us to do whatever we kind of wanted. Outside of the sermon, he was like, hey, look, sermon's mine. That's like, we could do whatever we want outside of that. And so we did a lot of things in the church group. We saw baptisms happen during COVID. We saw people come to Jesus during COVID. And so it was like proof of concept at that point.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that we had was not lacking in any way. And so going from that, the cool thing is we had a massive team that could handle all the stuff that we were doing. And so
about how many members? Or team
we had about 35 team members.
Okay, that's good.
And so going from that, because one of the things we implemented was everybody gets called once a week. And so when you have 1,200 members and 35 people, everybody
divided up, divide and conquer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so maybe not every week, but every month. But we had all these members that we had to contact. We had all the inbound from online that we had to deal with. And so having a team to be able to do that, and then going from 35 people to just me and Lana was a drastic shift.
The other 33 people, like, what happened?
Well, they were the staff of Evangel. And so we were utilizing the staff of Evangel to do what we were doing during COVID. Okay. And so post-COVID, when we were transitioning out, well, of course, all that staff works at Evangel. And so we kind of...
So they went back to work for Evangel?
Well, they were all the staff. So we were using the children's pastor. We were using the events coordinator. We were using...
That's full-time ministry. Full-time plus.
Yeah, so we were using all those guys to do what we were doing online during COVID. And so it was a fun time. We had the creative department fully at our disposal, and we utilized all of them and to do all that we were doing. And so it was really cool to see all that happen.
Yeah. I had an idea for an online church. Like, I'd preach a message, and then we'd meet somewhere for lunch at a restaurant. Of course, it was just me. I didn't have the team, just an idea. So, but was it anything like that?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever meet up?
So one of the things that the goal of only one church is to produce more churches. And so, the way I'm meaning more churches is back in the day, there was this thing called house church.
Yeah.
And it was not a big thing, but it was a well-known thing in a lot of circles, and it was a new church model. And so one of the things that only one's goal is to produce micro churches. And so it's taking the form of a house church and kind of bringing it up under a umbrella organization, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so you have a lot of those concepts under one umbrella, and that was the concept that we wanted to birth out of only one. But God had different plans with a lot of that, and He brought us here. So a lot of that.
But are you and Lana, if you don't, sorry to interrupt, but are you and Lana still pastoring that church?
Yeah, absolutely. We go live once a week. On Tuesday is our prayer night, and we usually share a little message. We've transitioned to blogging every day. Okay. Just started this week on the blog stuff, and so we released 2 articles. I missed yesterday. I was not feeling well. So I was like, hey,
he's human.
As we were doing all this, I told the live church, I was like, look, I might not make every day. My goal is every day, but I might not make every day. Yeah. And so, but I just started sharing the faith journey that I felt like God had been placing on me, because I felt like He was like, you need to do a study in faith. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll do a study in faith. Delayed obedience a little bit, but I started last month doing the study. And so it kind of, my goal was to launch it in December, all that He had been placing in me. Okay. And so we did our first live on Tuesday with what we're studying in the faith.
Am I understanding you correctly, that was your first live service or something?
No, we go live every week. You're right, Tuesdays. Yes. And so this was the first start of the faith series.
Of the start of a new series.
Yeah.
So you and Lana are basically in full-time ministry plus.
Yeah.
Your life is ministry.
Right.
As it should be for every Christian.
And that's the thing that a lot of people, Lana and I, we hear all the time, oh, we need to be evangelistic, and we need to be missionaries, and we need to be this. And it's like, isn't that how we're supposed to be always? Like that should be a part of who we are as Christians. Yeah. We should be able to walk into someplace and be able to at least know what God's speaking and share the faith that
requires discernment.
Yeah, and Lana has a phenomenal discernment.
One of your favorite words, phenomenal.
Yes. I mean, she is able to walk in, and the funny thing is, like, before she walks into a grocery store, a lot of times she'll say, God, divine appointments. Like, I just want to hear you. And she'll start talking to people in the store and just start loving on them and sharing the gospel with them. And we've seen a lot of people get prayed for in that. We've seen people pray for healing. We've seen some crazy things, but it's all because of living a life that's worthy of the call.
Yeah, like the seminary course I just took was on kingdom ecclesiology. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's the kingdom general, which is all inclusive, and then there's the kingdom special, which is the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The kingdom. Yeah, I think I said that right. Is there anything that you want to promote, Shane? Roswell Assembly, only one church, anything else?
Well, of course, Roswell Assembly is a phenomenal church. It is a place that I feel like is here for the city, and I feel like everybody should come to this church too, because God's doing a new thing, and He starts sifting the ground. And as Pastor Jones has been saying in his message, things are shifting, and I feel like this is a phenomenal place. But if you're not able to make it to Roswell Assembly, only one church is a place where you can build your faith, and the goal again is to birth churches from that. And we feel like God, that's what. If you're struggling going to church, if you're struggling with something, we got people there.
I don't have a question about them in my notes, but would I be remiss if I didn't ask you about SJ and Shiloh?
Yeah. There are 2 little ones. SJ's 10 years old. Shiloh's 4 years old.
Oh, he's 10 now.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
I always, like, from the first time I met him, I thought he was very articulate.
He is. He's a special kid. SJ, loves reading. So that's one of the reasons why he's very articulate. He loves reading, and he loves being able to emotionally be involved in something. And so if he's there, he's fully there. And I love that about him.
Yeah.
But he is, if he's watching a TV show, he's fully in the TV
I'm
show.
like that sometimes.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
buddy, I love you.
Depends on the show.
Right. And I'm like, buddy, we're not in the show. It's okay. And it's
like I remember I was sad like when I watched Winnie the Pooh as a little kid when Tigger made a deal and he couldn't jump. I was like, Tigger can't jump anymore.
Right, exactly, and that shit would be bawling at that point.
Yeah,
and so
I'd be right there with him.
He feels everything very deeply, and he's the one that loves everybody, and he teaches me every day how to love everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So just give me a story about him. One time we were at a barber shop, and this guy that I was with, I knew some things with him. He was rough, and like when somebody's doing your hair, you're like, oh, you're like a really rough person. Like you're just gruff, and so I didn't say much. I didn't talk a whole lot. Then SJ's on the other side, and I can't hear him because we're kind of separated. And the lady who was cutting his hair comes around the corner and says, "I love your son." And I was like, "Oh yeah, he's a great guy." She goes, "No. He just shared Jesus with me."
Oh, awesome.
And I'm like, that's my kid. And the guy, and this finally showed everything about this guy. He told me, "Oh yeah, I'm Muslim. She used to be Muslim. She needs to choose whether she's gonna follow Jesus or is she gonna follow Muslim or Allah." And or not Muslim, follow Allah. And I'm like, bro, that's why you're so violent, dude.
Yeah.
And that was. And when I say violent, he was just, how intense on doing everything. Yeah. I was like, okay. But in that moment, it was like I had the opportunity to share Jesus with, but because of his gruffness, I didn't. And I didn't really talk the whole time. And he was like, "Why did you move up here?" And when he said that, I was like, "Bro, you're crazy. And you got a scissors finger."
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that.
And I'm like, we came up here to work for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I was like, dude. But actually had that boldness in that moment. He wasn't scared. He didn't, and he shared it with that lady and told her that Jesus loved her, and he felt deeply what God was speaking in that moment and really shone his light. And so it's like a moment that I felt he succeeded. And then Shiloh
don't be so hard on yourself. Aren't a lot of pastors? I get the feeling they're hard on themselves.
Oh well, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. And I'm a perfectionist, so.
Oh, okay.
But with Shiloh, he's our aggressive, passionate
Does he
kid.
get that from Lana?
No, he probably gets it from me.
Okay.
He is full everything.
Yeah.
Like, we don't walk anywhere. We run everywhere.
Is he either all in or all out?
Absolutely.
No middle ground?
No middle ground whatsoever. And so this past week he was sick.